All right, so today we're gonna do another installment of Try to Stump Chris. We have Robyn here, and she has some questions that she's gonna ask me.
So Chris, why does clay change color as it goes from greenware to bisqueware to its final fired state?
Prior to the firing, it has to do with moisture content. When we fire clay, the clay is making a chemical change. One, there is chemical water that is coming off of the clay. The clay particles are moving closer and closer together, and so we're really seeing the density of the clay changing.
What would happen if you mix something like porcelain, which I know is really light colored, with something like earthenware, which is like a dark red?
That is stoneware clay. So porcelain is the most pure clay material. It's a kaolin. Typically, when we think about earthenware clays, we're thinking about red clays. And that's because that kaolin has traveled so far from its source that it's picked up iron along the way.
So I know you know a lot about glazes and you make your own glazes, but is there a particular color that is really hard or impossible to make?
I do know that there are certain colors that are more difficult to achieve than others. I don't know directly if there's like a color that we can't achieve, but reds, for instance, can be really challenging. Usually your color comes from chemical reactions that happen. In some cases, we use mason stains or pigments to tint or color our glaze. There are a couple different ways to get red, but one of them is through like an iron saturate. And so you really have to get not only the firing right, but the chemistry of the glaze right.
You take something through glaze fire and you want to add on glaze again. Can you reglaze fire it?
There are sort of rules and there's ways to break them. We dip our glazes. I know in some studios they paint their glazes, but we rely on the porosity of the bisqueware in order to absorb the water and apply the dust that's suspended in that water to the surface of our pot. Well, when we take our clay to maturity, those pores are almost essentially closed. And so we don't get that porous action depositing that dust on the surface of our pot. So while it's possible to dip the glaze temperature fired piece into glaze and have some glaze be there, it will never be the same thickness as the original glaze. So a lot of studios will not allow you to refire previously glazed pieces because they're afraid that it could blow up in the kiln and then all of those pieces would stick to everything in the kiln.
So what do you think is like the craziest or funkiest effects you could achieve with glaze?
So there are people who work with a material that is technically glaze, and they will actually make that glaze into an object. So you made a glaze that had very little water content in it. You can sometimes manipulate that material and then fire it and be in more control of it. A couple artists out there that are making objects that are supported by glaze. So you could have like a sphere and have a support underneath of it, put this glaze material on top of it, it actually drips down, and then after the firing, you can take out the support, and it's now the glaze that's supporting this object by standing.
Could you, in theory, not that you would, in theory, put in the kiln that could survive?
So there are a lot of different materials that will survive the temperatures that we fire to. So one of them is quartz. They're like pushing it into the surface or creating like a little well for it to kind of be glued in place by glaze. It's kind of interesting to think about the things that will not hold up to our temperature. So if you were to fire diamond in our kiln, it would completely burn away. Yeah. Something that I really encourage people to do is to test things. Creating like a small sagger box, which is bisqued, enclosed box, and fire, object inside of that box and see what, if any, change there is.
I think mastery in ceramics is more about kind of gaining control over all the technical elements, or more about kind of letting go creatively.
There's some kind of old saying that says that you spend X number of years, getting something perfect and then spending the rest of your life sort of loosening up. I think about craftsmanship and I think about architecture and really designing something to do what you want it to do. Once you get to that stage where you're consistently producing these things, that becomes very stagnant, and we're not machines. From my perspective, I don't want to produce these things that look like a machine could have produced them. I want to make things that have life, and I think that life comes through this imperfection, and that imperfection is either something that you have control over or just the nature of us as humans having those minor imperfections.
How much imperfection do you think should be left behind?
So I think that is the real question. And I think that it's all about the curation of information on the surface and balancing control with irregularity. You have a rim that undulates on your pot. Having a crisp foot really shows the user or the viewer that you were in control and that this irregular rim has come out of intention. Illustrating intention so that you can get away with exposing imperfection and having it feel intentional. And oftentimes when I work with students who are just starting to gain control of the material, I often tell them, like, put a single line on the pot while it's spinning, and it will really convince the viewer that, like, you had this bit of control, and it will excuse that little bit of irregularity in the foot that you haven't quite got.
Do you think ceramics is more art or more craft?
This is an endless debate. I want to make things that are utilitarian, that function incredibly well. Clay is a unique material or medium. There's a lot of technical ability that goes with it. So I think that that's why it's such a hot debate in the ceramics world.
So I know you've been working with clay for a long time. Is there anything about clay or ceramics, pottery, anything that you wish was different?
I would love to have more consistency. And the real reality, though, is I truly believe that it's the irregularity and the not getting it right every time is why I'm truly still here, and that it challenges me every single day. It doesn't matter how many years I work in the material, I'm still learning and I'm still being challenged endlessly. And I think that that is the key to what I love about it. It can be so frustrating and it can be so discouraging at times, but it truly is the thing that captivates and keeps you here. If not, I think everybody would take a pottery class, they would make their perfect cups, and then they would kind of do a mic drop and walk away and never come back to it.
Is there anything that you wish new people coming to clay for the first time knew right off the bat?
I deal with a lot of adults in my practice, and I think that adults oftentimes don't remember that failure is part of the learning process. It's not a negative. It can't succeed without first failing if it's something that's meaningful. Our lives are so full of instant gratification and things that just happen for us. Adults typically are good at what they do every day. They're having this output that is consistent. We just need to open ourselves up for the opportunity for failure and not take it as a personal hit. For instance, like the shortest class that we teach here tends to be 3 or 4 weeks. And the pots that they make in their first session and the pots that they make at the end, there is a huge progression between those things. And they can really see a lot of the time that, oh, this doesn't even identifiable as a pot. And now this is something that I could, put some salsa in.
It holds liquid.
Yeah. I absolutely love talking about all things clay. If anyone out there has some questions, I'd love to answer them. Send in whatever you got.